Hey everyone, you've made it to the final project. Congratulations. You've finished about 9 labs at this point, so that was no small feat. And especially if you did them over the summer, that was like 7 weeks. If you've done it through the semester, it's been a lot of work. So now you've arrived at the final project. These instructions will be a bit of a gloss over of some of the steps, but there is a step-by-step instructions that we'll take a look at here in a second. I just wanted to take a minute and talk a little bit about the lab and what it's going to entail. So if you're wondering, or if you have any questions about what you're doing, feel free to come by like during office hours, or even just over Zoom and, ask me like what it is you're doing and what might work. It can be a final creative project, and I'd prefer it to be something that you're working on. Maybe you have this song. I think a lot of us do. We have like 1 or 2 tracks or 1 track. We've been working on it forever and it's like 90% done, but we just need that extra push to finish it. So if you're like me and probably a lot of your other classmates, you just need a little bit more time or maybe even a deadline to just kind of help you finish it. So use that. If you don't have a creative bone in your body and you hate creativity, you could always do one of the sessions from the classic multi-track sessions under modules. You could go in and just do a mix of one of those sessions. Let's see, I don't have them up here in the module here in the summer one, but during the normal semester they would be up there. If you'd like access to those, just reach out to me. So yeah, you could do a mix if you want. You could do your own track. You could create something in Logic or Ableton or whatever your native DAW is, and then sort of import it into Pro Tools to mix it and finalize it. The only real rules of the project are it has to involve some editing of audio or video. It must use some of the mix techniques that we've learned so far in these 9 labs. Use of some organizational and session formatting, backup, upload, and file sharing like we've been doing. There needs to be some use of MIDI, so whether you want to do it in Pro Tools or in your native DAW, that's fine. And then there's this project documentation here that you'll need as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and download that right now, just so we can take a look at it when we get to the instructions. All this stuff is in the instructions as well. Let me minimize preview. Also, I've put some help pages here on how to export your files from Logic as well as Ableton. So yeah, it's worth 200 points. So I'm putting a lot into this, and you can see you get 25 points for session setup, another 25 for organization, as well as the use of video or MIDI. You get 25 points for turning it in the correct place and the correct format. You get 25 points for session documentation, and then you also get another 50 to 75 points, 50 points to use the mixing techniques of EQ and dynamics, as well as verb and delay. And then it says here you get 25 points for utilizing lab class time. Obviously, if this is during the summer, just utilize your time. So that's a free 25 points out of the 200. Otherwise, if you're here during the normal semester, we will be giving you a bunch of class time to complete a lot of this stuff. So just make sure you're utilizing those times. So let's get to the instructions. If we go back to modules here and under final projects, it'll take us all the way down to final project instructions. There's a very old help video here that we will replace. But as always, what you're going to be turning in is going to be one final zipped folder containing the whole Pro Tools PTX file, audio files, Redbook Bounce, and the session documentation, which we'll go over. So this basically, let's say you made a beat in GarageBand, or you recorded something, or you made a beat in FL, or you recorded something in GarageBand, and you want to go ahead and now mix it in Pro Tools or finalize it. So basically, I've set these instructions up to kind of mirror the Mixing to Win lecture that you'll find on Canvas as well. So the idea is to sort of, kind of have a pre-plan or a vision. You don't have to create a soundstage diagram for the final turn-in, but it might be helpful to kind of guide you on how you're going to mix things. Probably for your own music, you're not going to have a reference track. Maybe you do, but maybe you're doing a cover, so you could use the cover as a reference track. but this is just a good way to kind of get started. As I mentioned, I put in these help files on how to actually export from Logic as well as from Ableton. So if you want to look at those, it's really just one window in Logic where you just have to go to this file export regions as audio files. So you can do that. And then in Ableton, it's once again just one window where you're going to export audio. And you're just going to export all the tracks as individual audio files so that you can mix them and do some other effects or apply some other effects to them in Pro Tools. So there's that. It talks about here how to create a static mix. This is kind of a reprise from probably lab 6 as well as some of the other labs. It wants you to use, EQs, dynamics, and sort of the art method is here, as well as EQ for clarity and weight. Kind of just as an example, I still have lab 9 open here, so you can kind of just see, here on this kick track here, I have an EQ. Let's see the EQ, and you can see I'm like cutting out some of the high end. I have a compressor here where I have sort of a kind of a fast attack time for a kick. But anyways, then I also have a boost EQ after the compressor, and then it looks like I've put another limiter. So you don't have to do this for every track in your session, but you probably want to go through and apply that sort of, EQ for clarity. So, an EQ cut or using a shell for a pass filter, some type of compression, as well as then some EQ boosts to add weight or bring out certain aspects of each instrument. So you want to do that. Let's see, in here as well is, let's not open a contract here. Let's just go back to Google Chrome. I think because I don't know what's going on right now. I think I need to, I think because I had it maximized here. There we go. Great times. So yeah, we like we said, EQ for clarity, EQ for compression, or excuse me, add some compression using the art method, and EQ for weight. It also wants us to set up a send and return. You can refer to this like 2 or 3 decade old send and return model. You can see going back to Lab 9 again, you can see how here, if you remember from Lab 9, like you can see on this drum bus here, I set up bus 1 and 2 as a send, and bus 1 and 2 is going to this track called Verb, and its input is bus 1 and 2, and then on that track, I've got some Verb if I open it up here. Great. Sorry, all the plugins are open, so I can send more, send less via that bus 1 and 2. Let's see. We also have some automation. So we did some automation in the other lab, but feel free to add some automation. It could be volume, it could be otherwise. If you're in your edit window here, of course, right now we're looking at the send level of this track, but you could easily go to volume and adjust volume as well. Let's get stupid here and go crazy with the volume. I'm just going to go crazy here. And let's take a listen to that track. We can see here if we play it back. I'm just going to mute it. Yeah, so you can see how it's sort of, let's see, following the automations that we're seeing here. Make it a little bit smaller. You can see the fader is sort of moving over here in line with the automations. I tried to do really crazy automations. You can see the fader is sort of drifting here based on the automation lines that I drew over here. Let me go crazy. Let me try to go as crazy as I can. I don't know. I guess that's not crazy enough. Let me go, if I go to the pencil tool here and go to random, this is where it gets stupid. There we go. There we go. Okay, watch that fader just like go nuts here. Let's see. That's really not helpful. Yep. All right. So yeah, you can see this. It's just not gonna do it. There we go. You can see now the fader is moving based on the automation that's happening here. Yep. There, it's like going up. Now it's gonna go up. Boom. There we go. Great. Amazing. All right. So you can add some automation, hopefully one that's musical and not what I just did there. So that's another area you can look at. By the way, it also shows you how you can enable any parameter within any plugin for automation as well and view it in that same edit window as well. It talks about adding some stereo bus compression like we did in Lab 8. It shows you for Maxim here. It's always good to just put a little Maxim on it at the end. One of the last parts of the lab just talks about going through the session documentation. So you'll probably find there's like a lot of stuff you don't know the answer to or you can't fill out on this. So feel free to reach out to me with questions. But really, I would just go through and do the best you can. If we look here, let me try opening. I should have it on the desktop here. So let me try opening it in preview. And yeah, we can just take a quick look at it. So yeah, this is a form, I would typically fill out, either send to a label or send as part of an invoice, or maybe even like if I did the mix and somebody else was going to master it, they could just kind of send it along or send it up the chain. So, it just has the project title, the dates it was done or completed, when it was started, when it was completed, who the artist is, any other producers, recording engineers, anybody else involved, the studio it happened in. There's a bunch of information about the DAW, like did I use Pro Tools? What was the host computer? Was it a Mac or a PC? What version of the OS? A to D conversion is a fancy way of saying, did you use a Scarlett interface? Did you just use the headphone jack on your computer or the sound card? Sync source is probably not something you need, and reference level is probably not. But these are things sometimes, depending on the system I'm using, whether it's analog or digital or a hybrid, these are some things that are important. You can put the delivery information here. This is usually really important if there's an upload link. The mixing section, if you notice here, I've just done it for the kick track. So I kind of go through and say on the kick track, I put negative 12 dB. I put some harmonic distortion on there, like the lo-fi plugin. I guess in this one I use saturation knob. Was there a gate? No. Or it says yes, but we probably won't use gates. Did I do any subtractive EQ, some compression, some additive EQ, and then what kind of time-based effects did I do? Also, if I adjusted the actual fader level on the track, I could put that here, and then any routing. This is just helpful if somebody has to come after me and maybe do additional mixing and or master what I did. We can talk about any stems, like if I'm handing them stems. We talked about earlier in the semester, like sometimes you bounce it as a multi-track to send to a mastering engineer, or if you're recording, you send a multi-track to a mix engineer. Sometimes you send stems where it's just like all the drums or like all the guitars and all the vocals on separate stereo stems or audio files. You can put any other notes that you want in here, any issues. You're like, the bass still sounds horrible. That can be kind of a point of reference for somebody who's working on it after you. By the way, these forms might seem kind of silly if you're just like working it on yourself and then like distributing on DistroKid or on like SoundCloud. But if anybody is going to work on it after you, this paperwork is really helpful. And usually in the professional audio chain, sometimes one person is recording it, somebody else is mixing it, somebody else is mastering it, somebody else is remixing it and then remastering it. So having all this documentation is really helpful. If you thought the vocals should have been a lot louder, but the client kept telling you to turn the vocals down, you could put this under client mix feedback where they still weren't happy with the vocal level, or just be careful if you're raising the vocal level too much. Sometimes you can give a heads up to the person after you, like they like a quieter vocal, or they're going for a more like Tame Impala, vocals further back in the mix. Just to kind of be like, hey, these are the decisions I made and there's a reason for it. And you can put your info and stuff there too. You don't have to put your name and address or, blood type there. But it's just good. I often would get phone calls, especially mastering engineers who would work after me. They might have a follow-up question, like a quick question. And it goes a long way if they can just pick up a phone or email you or text you and just call you and just be like, hey, like, what are you doing on this track? And you're like, oh, I did this, this, and that. Or maybe you won't remember. So you'll have a copy of the notes and be like, oh, that's right. This is what I did. Because sometimes, you'll start a project in August of one year and it won't get to the mastering engineer till the next year. And in the meantime, you've already worked on, 30 other projects in the interim. So yeah, fill out that paperwork. It goes through here, the directions on kind of how to fill each one out. The last thing it wants you to do on your master track as the last insert is to apply dither. Dither just helps with going from 24-bit to 16-bit. So if you notice, we're often mixing at 24-bit, and then I have you bounce it as a Redbook audio file. So, oh, look at here. There's already some power dither on the track. So if I open that up, and I go here, I have power dither, 16-bit, noise shaping type 3. By the way, I added that by just clicking on the little dot here, going to multi-mono plugin, and going to dither. I have the dither plugin or the power dither. Some of the, by the way, if you notice some of these, the L1 Ultra Maximizer, they actually have their own dither on it. So usually I turn the dither off on those plugins because I have always just been told to use the Pro Tools Power Dither, and it's what Pro Tools recommends using. So if you're working in Pro Tools, using this Power Dither is the best way to go. After all that, that's pretty much it. So you've probably made your session here. You've done some mixing. You've filled out the paperwork. You want to go ahead and create a bounce of it, and then zip the whole folder and make sure it has the proper sharing settings. So I would go ahead and be creative and get going with, what you want to do for your final project, the sort of idea. And maybe you're going to spend some time sort of just like creating a new beat or, re-recording a song or something that you've been working on. So do all that. And then once you get it to a state where you want to sort of bring it into Pro Tools, that's when I would then go and get into the directions portion here. Or the final project instructions, and you can kind of go through and just make sure you've sort of checked all these boxes as far as mixing, documenting, and then finalizing your session.